Hello, and welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me while I'll explore the wide world of pens. You see 4 pens in front of you. One will be the focus of this review, and the other 3 will be for a future review. But I just figured I'd give you a little bit of a visual look at upcoming reviews, and also my new red felt pen tray. We're going to focus on this black pen. So let's do that. This is as far as I could take the pen apart. I could probably disassemble the converter, but it's that simple push-pull small converter. Not my favorite, but I prefer it to a cartridge, and I'm certainly not going to eyedropper this pen. This is a standard number 5 Delike Nib Assembly with a nice black Delike nib. I could not pull the nib and feed out, but I've cleaned it thoroughly, and I'm comfortable that it will function well. So that's the pieces. Let's look at inside of the cap. I've darkened the room and brought in my trusty LED bore light. Very nice patterned finish on this metal brass pen. And if we look inside the cap, we'll see, yep, it's definitely a brass color with some type of coating on it. I don't think it's, looks pretty good and durable, but time will tell. And that looks like it'll seal pretty well. Other metal pens like this I have that have those fine threads capped, the nib stays wet fairly well. Figure while we're at it, we'd also look at the barrel. You know, the light really would show off any imperfections, and this is machined very well. As we look inside, we'll see that same raw brass inside there, and there's those threads, half coated, half uncoated, that keep the section in place. Well done. So at ink to put in this great small pocket black pen. Haven't used this ink for a while in a review. So it's black Noodler's ink, American Eel. It's a lubricated ink, so it should work nice in that fine nib. It's a bulletproof ink, and it's a neutral ink, water-based. It should work well in the pen. Here's the color card, and to my eyes it looks like a very, very dark gray, not necessarily black, but what is black? Well, black is basically every color. That's what we learned when I was growing up in school. So that chromatography is definitely interesting. But is it permanent? Nah, here's the chromatography done after I let the ink dry for a day, and I'd say it's pretty permanent. So let's see how it writes. So that's the most I could fill it up. Yeah, I did up and down a few times. I did it slowly. I'd say it's about a 0.5 milliliter of ink, so it's not a lot of ink, but the fact that I have this small converter that fits into the pen, again, I'm happy with it. I'll live with it. Not going to design a screw converter. You might do some type of aerometric filler, but then that has its own limitations to it and really doesn't add that much more ink. Yes, the pen is crab and turntable worthy. I think the design is excellent. It is form and function meeting at an optimal point. I was intrigued with this pen after I did some other Delike and black pocket pens, brass pocket pens reviews, so ordered it. It came relatively quickly, and the price was good. Here's the auction. It does come with different types of nibs, but particular auction I bought this one just had a fine nib, and spoiler alert, it is a fine nib. So we're going to let Mr. Crab hold up this nice brass pen for your visual entertainment, and then we're going to see how that nib writes and then dive into some details on the pen. Stay tuned. I did the writing sample with the pen unposted because it will hit the tripod if I do screw that cap onto the back of the pen. And for short writing, it's doable, but not for any long sessions where you're going to move around and it's going to get caught in the crook of the hand. This nib is very smooth. It just glides across the paper. No feedback. It exceeds any other Delike nib I've ever used. Maybe that whatever they use for the black coating provides that super smooth response. It's not a nib you're going to get line variation out of. I mean, you can squeeze it and it will put down more ink, but it's already a wet writer, so more ink isn't necessarily what you might want. And with this black ink, it's just black, and that's all there is to it. So let's explore more of the details of this pen before we do our summary. So the one thing to keep in mind is this is a small pen. We'll give you those dimensions. It's also, without a doubt, a dense metal pen. We'll give you the weights. The cap comes off with a few turns. I'll measure that and give you the exact number of turns. It's a small pen without posting it. That section is also on the small side. We'll give you the dimensions of the section. It's easy to screw on the cap to post the pen, and then the length becomes fine. Definitely increases the weight, as that cap does have some weight to it, but because of how short the pen is, it doesn't back weight the pen, so writing with it posted is fine from that perspective. I do think that section's a little small for my fingers and for writing for long periods of time. Overall, I'm very impressed with the build quality of this pen. That finish is great. It feels good in the hand. It's not slippery. And that black nib is certainly black. So this is certainly a stealthy pen. But let's compare it to other stealthy pens. So here are some other stealthy pens of various sizes that I think belong in the same family as this Delike pocket pen. Here's the Stipula Passaporte in Stealth. Very controversial pen when it came out a couple years ago, but this one has worked fine for me. It's been inked up since day one, and it's worked flawlessly. Here's a generic black pen of a different design. So this is eyedropper only. I think small cartridges will fit, but don't hold me to it. This one, and this is plastic, so you could eyedropper it, and I think this one is eyedroppered. This takes that push-pull converter. When you increase the length a little bit, as this design does, you can put a full-size converter in here, so that's what works with this one. This is the Hong Dion Forest pen. It comes in a great amount of colors. Here's some examples. It comes in a variety of nibs, and it's priced very, very well. Priced competitively with the Delike brass pocket pen. And it's certainly a pen I may get another one of. I'm eyeing some of those other colors, but who knows if I'll pull the trigger. And it's also sold on Amazon for those in the U.S. who wanted to buy from Amazon. And up here is a Monteverde Nighthawk stealth pen, which was a Goulet exclusive many, many years ago. Let's uncap them and see how they look like in their posted form. So posted, they take on a different look. The Delike pen certainly holds its own in these three smaller pocket pens. The Stipula Passaporte is the shortest, but still usable. And this is that classic design which Delike has used quite a bit. This is a generic brand, and it's the only one with a gold nib. And I did try my best to put a black nib in there, but not successful, and that nib writes fine, so no need to swap it out. But aesthetically, it certainly doesn't look as nice as the other pens do. The Hong Dion is the longest pen of the group by a little bit. All of these have small number 5 nibs, except for the Monteverde, which has a number 6. You can always see some wear there on that part of the section where that black coating is starting to come off. And I think that that's something you should expect on any of these pens. It's not a completely indestructible black coating, and underneath of it is brass, so once it comes off, and I just think that look is nice. Kind of like a Urushi kind of look, where you kind of like whatever. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of choices if you want a stealth pen. They all have different sections, and we're going to try to narrow in on this section a little bit. So none of these sections are big. The Passaporte is actually quite nice. It has the biggest diameter of this group. I wish this was a little bit of a bigger section, and I think they could have accommodated that, but for some reason they did not. The Hong Dion pen is a thin pen, so this section fits into that design style of the pen, and the same with this black pocket pen. So that's where they go, and you can also see that variations in nibs. This is a great stub. This is a bent nib. This is a standard fine. I think this is a medium. And this is called a fine, but as we saw from the writing, it writes kind of like a medium. So here's the latest pen of my series of these Delike brass pocket pens. And it is shorter than these, and that's why it takes that short push-pull converter, where these take normal converters. It's all screw to post, which is fine. It works for me. So you have a kind of clear brass finish with some nice rings in it. Here's a retro black finish, which is kind of a matte, and you got your black. So you got choices here. If you want a really small pen, this is the one I would go with, which also comes in brass. Here's the way that looks. And if you wanted to get a little bigger pen with a standard converter, these will fit the bill. I recommend all three of these pens, depending upon which one you like. They all write first time, every time. They're great pocket pens. They're great everyday carry pens. That's enough for me. So we're back from exploring the pen. And we're going to come down to, how do I rate this pen? I have to give it a 9.6. It gets 2 checks for the nib, because that nib is great. It gets 2 checks for the look, design, the build, everything else. And yes, it's a short pen, but it's a pocket pen. If it gets bigger, it doesn't necessarily work as well as a pocket pen. So hopefully you've enjoyed this exploration of a pen that a couple people have talked about and a couple people have. So now I have one, and I'm happy. I'll enjoy it. We're going to thank you for watching. Hope you are staying safe, healthy, and happy, and hope you're enjoying your pens. Putting ink on paper, it helps crystallize thoughts, at least for me, when I write them down. We've reached the end of this video. And we're going to say bye. Until the next video. It's just a nice writer.